Hello my crafty friends, in this video I'm going to show you how to make an adjustable webbing strap with those beautiful contrasting connectors. So gather your supplies and let's get started. To make your adjustable strap you need webbing. I've cut mine to about 1.5 meters. Depending on the length of your strap, you may need to cut your webbing slightly shorter or longer. So just check it and see what you need. Now, because we are adding contrasting connectors to our strap, the size of the webbing needs to match your connector. Since I'm using the template from one of my patterns, the Mallory mini crossbody bag, I know that my webbing needs to be 1.5 inch wide because it needs to fit the widest portion of my connector. If you are using different connector, different template, maybe you drafted one yourself or maybe you are using one from other pattern, make sure that your webbing fits that specific connector. You'll need to cut 4 of those connectors from non-frame fabric, such as cork, vinyl, or for leather. You'll also need 1 rectangle ring and 1 strap adjuster or slider. Those 2 pieces needs to be the same size as your webbing. Then you'll need 2 swivel hooks to make your strap removable. You'll need to make sure those swivel hooks are the same size as the narrowest point of your strap connector, because we're going to feed the finished connector through and then bend it, fold it like this to anchor our swivel hooks in place. You will also need a couple of rivets and tools to set them in. So I have my hole puncher ready and my hand press. And because we are going to stitch 2 of those connectors together like this, what I like to do is to use multi-surface glue to hold that in place. If you don't like to use glue, you can use something like clips or double-sided tape. But I like to use glue because then I don't have to worry about the fabric shifting while I'm sewing. If your fabric is very lightweight or maybe stretchy, you may want to consider adding some stabilizer to the back of the fabric, at least to 2 pieces. So what I've done, I've cut 2 pieces of Decoville Light, and what I'm going to do is to glue them to the back of the fabric. Since I cannot really press my fabric, I'm going to use glue to just glue that in place. This way, when I finish sewing my connectors, those connectors will have enough structure and strength so I don't have to worry about the fabric stretching or what's worse, even ripping while I'm using my bag. So you may want to do that if your fabric has a tendency to maybe like stretching a bit, or maybe it is very floppy. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the back of the fabric now and glue those pieces to my connectors. So you want to keep your stabilizer out of the seam allowance. So keep it at least 2 millimeters, like 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of your connector, from the edge of the fabric. So I'm going to leave this for a bit so the glue can dry, and then we're going to move on to the next step. To begin, grab your webbing, then cut a small piece about 30 centimeters long. It doesn't have to be exactly, just eyeball it if you want. Here we go. What I like to do is to burn the edges with a lighter to prevent them from fraying. Now you can take your strap adjuster and your longer webbing And what you're going to do is to feed the end of your webbing through the adjuster and wrap it around this middle bar. So feed your webbing through the adjuster on one side and then bring it over the middle bar and feed it back through the adjuster, like so. So next, what you want to do is to place your webbing like so, so you can see the middle bar. This is the wrong side of the webbing. Then fold the end by about 1.5 centimeter and then bring this over on top of the webbing. So you are folding your webbing second time, like that. If you want, you can clip this end to just hold it in place. Next, you can take this to the machine and top stitch your webbing along this folded end to keep everything in place. If you want, you can sew a little box with a couple of stitching lines in the center, or even install a couple of rivets to anchor it in place. But since I'm making my strap for a small crossbody bag, I don't have to worry about too much weight, so simply stitching it across is sufficient for this project. Once you've got this end secured, grab your rectangle ring and then feed the other end of your webbing through the ring, like so. Then, making sure your webbing is not twisted, what we're going to do is to feed this loose end through the adjuster one more time. But this time we're going to do it in opposite direction. So make sure that folded end is on top, then feed the webbing through the adjuster, go over the middle bar in opposite way, in opposite direction than previously, and then pull it through. So make sure your webbing is not twisted while you're doing it. So this is what it looks like now. I have my strap adjuster on one side with the loose end, and then there is a loop with the rectangle ring on the other side. Since my connector is wider along the top and then it gets narrower going towards the bottom, if I place it on top of my webbing, the webbing kind of peeks out at a certain point. So to prevent that from happening, what I like to do is to cut a little V shape from my webbing in the center of my webbing, like so. Again, I'm going to use lighter to just burn those edges. If you don't want to use lighter, then use something like fray check glue or multi-surface glue to seal those edges. So next, what you want to do is to take this to the machine and bring those two ends together, closing the gap, and baste this end so it doesn't open. So once you've got that, this creates slightly narrower webbing at the end. So when you place the connector on top, you don't have to worry about the ends peeking out. The glue is now dry, so I can move on to the next step. But before I actually stitch my connector, what I'm going to do is to paint the edge of the fabric with a Sharpie, because the right side of my fabric is black, but the wrong side is kind of like grayish white color. So when I finish sewing my connector, I don't want the white to be visible. It bugs me otherwise. So by coloring it with a Sharpie to ensure the wrong and the right side is the exact same color, I don't see the difference. So if you don't want to use Sharpie, you can use something like edge coat. That will definitely give you more professional finish. But since I don't have edge coat in black, I'm just going to stick to using Sharpie. So now I'm going to color all 4 pieces just at the edge of the fabric. You don't have to color the entire back. Also make sure to test it on a scrap of fabric before you use Sharpie, just to check if it doesn't leak to the other side. So now you can grab one of your connector pieces and add a little bit of glue to the top. Again, make sure to keep the glue out of the seam allowance. Then you can place the webbing on top like that. Make sure everything is straight and place it as low as possible without the webbing picking out along the bottom. Press it with your fingers. Then you're going to take another piece. So I have one with the stabilizer and one without the stabilizer. Again, add glue. This time I'm adding glue to the entire piece. So now I can take this and place it on top. So you are basically sandwiching your webbing between those 2 pieces. So make sure all the edges are aligned. Press it with your fingers so the glue sticks to the back of the fabric and to the webbing. If you want, place something heavy on top and just let the glue dry. Once the glue is dry, you can take this to the machine and simply top stitch around the entire connector about 2 millimeters from the edge. So make sure all those edges are nice and straight, they are aligned, so you can catch both pieces and you have a very nice connector on both sides. Here we go, this is what it looks like when it's stitched. So as long as you place those 2 pieces precisely, you're going to have a beautiful top stitching on both sides. And if I tilt this to the side, you can see, because I've painted the wrong side of the fabric with the marker, this is also nice and smooth and black. So there is a seamless finish. You don't see the whiteness, the lighter color picking out. So that's exactly what you are aiming for. Now you can take your short webbing and again trim a V shape away from the center on both sides. So this time we are cutting this piece from both ends. Burn the edges with the lighter or seal them with a fray check glue if you have one. Next, you're going to take this to the machine and again bring those 2 ends together close that gap and then baste to keep it in place. And you're going to do that on both sides. When you are ready, you can take your other strap and then feed the webbing through the rectangle ring like so. Fold this small piece in half and then line up the raw edges. Then if you want, take this to the machine and baste them together. Now you can take the remaining 2 strap connector pieces and add them to this end of your strap in exactly the same way we've done on this end. So you're going to grab one, add a little glue here, place the webbing on top, then grab the other one, add glue, place on top, wrong sides together, and then top stitch around all sides. Now that we have both of our connectors attached, we can add our swivel hooks. So grab your template and mark the placement of the rivet. Here we go. Then punch holes where you mark the placement of the rivet. Do that on both of your connectors. Now you can take one of your swivel hooks and feed the connector through, just like that. So make sure the right side of your strap is facing up, because you're going to fold the connector like this and then install rivet. So the shorter, narrower end is on the right side of the fabric. And then you have your swivel hook. So once you've got that, you can grab your rivet, insert the rivet through the hole on one side, then fold the connector and line up the holes and feed the rivet through the other hole, like so. Then place the cap on top and push it. Here we go. Then we're going to do that for the other connector as well. Now I'm going to take my hand press and press my rivet to secure it. Just like that. Here we go. And just like that, you've made your own adjustable webbing strap with those beautiful contrasting connectors. Well done.